Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all doing good and well. So it's been 24 hours now since I premiered my top 20 albums of 2022, and I now move on to 10 honourable mentions. These are 10 albums that didn't quite make the top 20 list, but even though they didn't make the top 20 list, there's still some fantastic stuff here. I mean, 2022 was a year I think we had so many great albums, or a lot of albums that were really good. These are kind of, I guess, my numbers 30 through to 21. And, there's still some seriously good stuff here that I highly recommend you check out, even though I'm calling these the honourable mentions. So without really any further ado and chit chat, I'm going to crack on with going through these, starting with my first honourable mention, which is Alter Bridge and Pawns and Kings. This came out back on the 14th of October earlier this year, and Alter Bridge are bands that never really, they never disappoint. I always think they put out at least a decent album. My favourite album from them is probably Fortress, I think, from 2013, but they've done a lot of good albums, and this is another very strong album to add to their catalogue. It's their seventh studio album now, and great tracks on here like This Is War to start the album, Dead Among the Living, Sin After Sin, Fable of the Silent Sun is another song I really like on that one. So yeah, Alter Bridge back again with a bang with Pawns and Kings. Next up, my second honourable mention is by a band I discovered through the Chill Dude on a Couch Reviews channel. This is a band called Drift Into Black with their very heavy concept album Earth Torn, which has a sort of story running through it throughout the whole album of an alien visiting Earth, and he ends up having to make lots of these kind of difficult choices. But I think it's an album which is constructed and put together really well. Lots of good stuff on here, like It Fell From the Sky. I love that song a lot. Angel of Doom is another really good song on the album. And yeah, I found myself just enjoying the storytelling aspect of this album as well as the music. So just a really unique, interesting album that I enjoyed diving into when it came out earlier this year. So yeah, that's another honourable mention, Earth Torn by Drift Into Black. Next up, the bands of today's t-shirt, Amorphis. This is Amorphis and Halo. Another band that keep delivering great albums, really. I think in the Tommy Judson era, we've had just a string of some seriously good stuff recently from Amorphis. I saw them live pretty recently as well, and they were fantastic. I mean, what else would you expect? Their melodic death metal formula, I think, always works. It will just always work because you've got a great singer. They know how to write good songs, and Amorphis always just deliver us with some really strong stuff. So yeah, Amorphis Halo is my third honourable mention. Coming up next, we've got Avantasia with A Paranormal Evening with the Moonflower Society. It's quite a long title, yeah, Paranormal Evening with the Moonflower Society. And I kind of feel like this one is one of those albums that, a lot of people probably won't, if you're a sort of real kind of hardcore death metal lover, or you love extreme metal, Avantasia is probably not so much for you, but they have this kind of 80s power inspired songs. Tobias Sammet, I think, is a really good singer, and he always finds good guests to accompany him on his albums. And this album is just a fun album. It's just seriously fun. Lots of really memorable songs. I particularly enjoy Welcome to the Shadows, Misplaced Among the Angels, the Moonflower Society. Just a fun, exciting, I guess kind of power metal, theatrical style of an album that I really liked this year and have revisited a lot. That's another reason why I've made it one of my honourable mentions. Now we move on to, I guess this would be number 26 if I was doing a top 30 list. This is another honourable mention. Warpaint Radiate Like This, and this is a Californian quartet indie rock band, all women, and it's been a while since they put out an album. I think their last release was 2016, and but I think this is probably the strongest album I've heard from them since, I think it was their self-titled album, I think. And this is really good. It's a very laid back, very chilled out kind of album this time round. So very light tone to it. nothing particularly kind of super up tempo or anything like that on here, but it's got one or two psychedelic elements to it, and I think they're showing they're grown as a band a lot on this album. I really like going to this one. If you need something a bit more relaxing or restful, War Paint's Ready Like this will do the job for you. Next up, we have an Indonesian atmospheric black metal band called Pure Wrath and their album Hymns to the Woeful Hearts. I remember discovering this pretty early on this year. I think it was way back in February. I remember listening to this, and yeah, they really build up their songs very well, I think. And there are moments, I think it's in the song Presages from a Restless Soul, as an example, where they develop the music really well, and it gets more and more melodic with these really nicely kind of joined up guitar harmonies as well. And it's just definitely one of my favorite albums from 2022. One that I've enjoyed going back to from time to time. So that's Pure Wrath with Hymns to the Woeful Hearts. Now we move on to my next honourable mention, which is Infected Rain's Ecdysis. I have loved this album this year. It came out way back at the start of the year, and I think, it can be hard for albums that come out in the first week of the year to last long and to stay on your lists, but this one has done that, and I think the striking feature of Infected Rain is the amazingly powerful fry screams of Lena Scissorhands, the vocalist, whose vocals on here really shine. I mean, Fighter, Longing, Goodbye, Everlasting Lethargy is maybe one of my favourites on this one. I like the Postmortems, the two parts, the opening and the closing track on here. Perhaps the best album I've heard from them. I have checked out some of their other albums. This is maybe the best I've heard from them as well. Although I did quite like Endorphin, I think, which was their previous album. I checked that out earlier in the year too. Yeah, I think maybe they're a little bit underrated, maybe Infected Rain, thinking about it now. But yeah, great album that came out this year. So I've got three more honourable mentions here. The next one, we're going to shoegaze, of course, one of my favourite. You all know me as a bit of a shoegaze fan by now. This is Deserter. I remember listening to this when I had COVID or when I was particularly unwell. So this was the album that kind of helped me get through that a bit. It's very, it's quite an emotional album, actually. It sort of knows when to deliver on those really big climactic moments on the songs. Great mixing and here in production. I think the production and mixing is certainly another highlight of this album. Kind of like the album cover with the sort of sun there in the corner and somebody looking out from the cliff edge. Yeah, really good album, really good, atmospheric, beautiful. What more could you want from a shoegaze album this year? And speaking of shoegaze, my next pick is also another shoegaze album, so another honourable mention, which is a shoegaze album that came out this year. This is Asteroid Number 4 with Tones of the Sparrow. Now, I didn't realise this, but this band have been around for a very long time, since the late 90s, so I've got a lot of other of their albums still to check out. This is really good stuff. I was really impressed by this album. Lots of really memorable songs on here. I absolutely love the opening track, Emma. I love Chameleon, which is slightly more electronic. A little bit of a krautrock influence maybe on this album occasionally. Forever and Somewhere in the Middle are amazing tracks towards the end. It's a really good album. Shoegaze fans, don't miss this one from this year. Really good stuff. Tones of the Sparrow, Asteroid Number 4. That brings me to my last honourable mention, which was an album I actually, at first I was a little bit reserved about. I was not totally sure, about it. It's sort of just at first I thought, it just sound like other melodic death metal I've heard, but it really grew on me. This is Moonshade, and it's As We Set the Skies Ablaze. This is a Portuguese melodic death metal band. But the more I've listened to this, the more I've wanted to return to the album, come back to it, and now maybe it's a favourite Melodeath album of the year for sure. I mean, a lot of people I know will probably shout out Arch Enemy and Soilwork, of course, as well, which is on my top 20 list. But this is a pretty special, I think, melodic death metal underground kind of band from this year that put out this album. I thoroughly recommend just checking out the whole album. I don't think there's really a bad song on here, actually. You know, you've got stuff like Artemis and the Antagonist, which are probably two of my highlights on the album. Like the use of the female vocalists on this album that come in and guest on a few tracks, and it's just really good. I'd say for fans of the likes of maybe, oh god, I've forgotten the name, Blood Red Hourglass. If you like them, you probably really dig this. Maybe Children of Bodom a little bit, and there's a little bit of an element of that on here. So yeah, not one to miss if you like your Melodeath. So that's it from me for my honourable mentions, which I guess, like I say, was kind of like numbers 30 through to 21. Yeah, I hope that you'll also join me. I've got another premiere coming up pretty soon, which is my top 10 songs of 2022. So you can join me for that. That'll be the last video before Christmas. And then I've got my top 10 films of all time video planned on New Year's Eve. I'm hoping to get that done by New Year's Eve. I'm actually rewatching some of my favourite films at the moment, so that should all be ready by then, hopefully. So that's it from me for now. I was going to say Merry Christmas, but that should probably be on the next video because that's the last one before Christmas. But I'll say it anyway. Merry Christmas, everyone. Until next time, for me, bye for now.